with the trade deadline coming up, could they look east for a bottom 6 upgrade? Horwat, this is a name that you've thrown out. This is a name that both of us threw out a lot 3 years ago when he was on the trade deadline. Like, he was on the trade market 3 years ago. And instead, the Philadelphia Flyers decided, we're going to sign this guy to a 5-year contract. And that is Scott Laughton. He has soared up trade lists in recent days. He is top 5 in some. He's top 10 in others. In some, he's just, he might be on the verge of being a trade target. The 29-year-old center left wing has 2 years left on his contract, $3 million average annual value, and he's having what is considered to be a down season in Philly, 23 points, 7 goals, 16 assists in 54 games. He kills penalties, brings an edge to his game as only a Philadelphia Flyer can. But the pick is reportedly, the return is reportedly priced around a first-round pick. Horwat, with that in mind, what do you think of Scott Laughton as a fit before we get into paying that much of a price for a bottom 6 upgrade for this specific Penguins team?
Oh yeah, without talking about the price, he is a perfect fit. He is, because he's playing on the 4th line over in Philly. Right now, the Penguins are down 2 4th liners, mind you. We don't know Noel Chari's situation yet. He did skate, not moved to injured reserve. Again, like I kept mentioning with the Riley Smith injury, he was not taken off the active roster. That's something to keep an eye on. Whereas this time around, Jansen Harkins was moved to injured reserve. Noel Chari's still around, but we don't exactly know what the situation is. Ignoring price tag and asking price, Scott Laughton fits directly into that 4th line center role with Noel Chari out. If Noel Chari is okay, all right, well, you just said Scott Laughton's a center left wing. No, now he fills in for Jansen Harkins. And suddenly, you've got one of the biggest bruising 4th lines in the league with Achari and Laughton just throwing their bodies around like wrecking balls. Jeff Carter's there doing his thing, I guess. I mean, he's having a better season than we all expected, so that's a bonus. Yeah, suddenly you have a really entertaining 4th line. He's able to step in. Scott Laughton will be able to step in and fill in for whatever injury spot you have there. And whenever I threw this out to you, it was before we knew everything about Jansen Harkins. It was he could just fill in for Noel Chari for the time being. And then even if you want to if you are doing this and Noel Chari comes back, depending on the longevity of Noel Chari's head injury, all right, fine. We'll move Achari and or Laughton to that left wing or to a wing, and suddenly you have them both on the same line, and those boys are just piling up hits. It becomes fun. That just becomes entertaining. I can remember texting our buddy Noah Strackman about it. I love Goofy season.
Yeah.
And this is that time. So that's a Goofy option. And honestly, it's one that just, it makes sense. It sucks that it's the other side of the state. For what it's worth, Kyle Dubas is still new to the rivalry. So maybe that's part of, it's a little easier. As highly unlikely as it is, it's just the most fun.
Here's a hypothetical trade for you, because I think we both agree the Penguins are not paying a first-round pick for a bottom 6 forward.
No.
They're just not. They're not paying a first-round pick. They shouldn't really pay a first-round pick for anybody, I think, in this trade market. I don't think there's anybody that really warrants that for the Penguins at this stage of the game, because I don't think they're one player away, like I said, from becoming a cup contender, which at the end is the goal. Vegas wants Riley Smith back. Jesse Granger said in that piece, it would probably have to go through a third team. So Vegas pays Philly that first-round pick. Penguins get Scott Laughton. Vegas gets Riley Smith through Philadelphia with a little bit of retained salary. And then the Penguins throw in a mid-round pick to Philadelphia to help grease the engine there. That works out for everybody, because I mean, again, very much a hypothetical trade that will not happen. I will tell you right now, that will not happen. If it does, I'm going to play the lottery the next day.
Absolutely.
But that hypothetical trade works out. The Penguins move Riley Smith, who is right now a trouble contract, off of their roster. They get Scott Laughton, who I think would be a good third line guy for them. Maybe a Laughton, Eller, Puljujarvi line is interesting. And the Flyers get their first round pick plus like a mid-round pick for shipping out Scott Laughton and retaining a little bit of Riley Smith. So I think that works out for most people.
Yeah, but again, you just have to figure, you have to hope that the brain trust in Philadelphia of Keith Jones, Danny Briere, and every other former Philadelphia Flyer.
Besides Jeff Carter.
is okay with rolling out a player from their roster that's going to land in Pittsburgh. This isn't the 90s anymore, and this isn't Rick Tocchet we're talking about. This is a bit of a different, especially considering the Flyers are doing way better than anybody expected and somehow maintaining it, and the Penguins are struggling. So and when it comes to trade season, teams are going to throw you anchors, not help you.
Yeah.
And they're not going to, the Flyers have no interest in helping the Penguins either. I mean, so that's why, like, yeah, you're right. If this trade pulls through, oh my goodness, everyone buy a lottery ticket. But at the same time, it is just goofy season, and it would just take a lot of convincing. You're right. Greasing the wheels with an extra pick or two for Philly, going through a third-party team. Everyone comes out happy. It would just, it would depend. And like I said, just have to make sure that, former Flyers like Danny Briere, Keith Jones, I can't remember who else they have in their front office. I think Bobby Clark is still there. You think he's going to trade with the Penguins?
I'd have to look up and see the last time the Penguins and the Flyers actually executed a trade. I know the last time a player went from Philly to Pittsburgh was the Mark Friedman waiver pickup from Ron Hextall. That was his first move as general manager. And I mean, that worked out for the most part. Friedman was good for his role, and it cost nothing for the Penguins to pick him up. But I think that's an interesting name, though. You know, it's a name that's very high, and it is going to catch a lot of people's interest. I think Pagnotta said that it was Tampa Bay, Colorado, and Toronto were all interested or reportedly interested in Scott Laughton. And when Tampa Bay's in there, they're willing to just throw the kitchen sink just to get the guy that they want. So if he ends up being the number one guy on their sites, you can say, kiss that deal goodbye. Yeah. But it's an interesting name, though. And I think it brings something that the Penguins sorely need. Obviously, 29 years old, not ideal. I get it. The Penguins are one of the oldest teams in the NHL, but he's a prick, which is great. He can score goals. He scored 18 goals last season, so he's done that in the past. And overall, I think he's a solid bottom six player and an upgrade over what you have in a guy like you mentioned, Jansen Harkins. I think that if you move out Riley Smith and you bring in a guy like Scott Laughton, you get $2 million in cap space, which is nice. You get Laughton under control for the next 2 years, so you can move him around a little bit. I think it's intriguing. He obviously has a lot of chemistry with Travis Konechny over in Philadelphia. We saw that last night. So maybe he can move up and play in the top six. Who knows? But the Penguins, if they're going to make a move, it's going to have to be one of those weird 3-team. It is selling, but buying at the same time. I don't know. I feel like that's where we're headed this season. And Scott Laughton would certainly be a decent prize at the end of the rainbow for the Penguins if they do go through all those hoops and all those gymnastics.